and then we can start. So yeah, welcome. I started the recorded. So anything that was before was not recorded. Again, welcome to the Kubernetes Book Club. We meet every Friday. If you're watching online, there's a playlist with a lot of episodes. I was counting. I think we have 66 up to now. A
Wow.
bunch of books, a bunch of topics. I was looking at the first ones that we recorded last year, and somebody was asking on how to build a Kubernetes controller using Go. So they were not aware about KubeBuilder on how to get started. So I said, like, you know what? We did it in a book club. There's 5 episodes. We did it hands-on, and we built a Go controller doing the KubeBuilder. So if they want to learn about that, you can use that. So at least for that, people, it's useful. Let me share my screen.
Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
Sergio is also going to share his screen. Everybody's going to share their um, hardware. So here's my hardware. So I have a Raspberry Pi. Got it ready yesterday. Here, it's a Raspberry Pi 4, and I was able to do the image in the SD card. Got Ubuntu, not 20. The book says 20. I got 21, and I enabled the kernel flags, and then I stopped because I wanted to do it here. And if something doesn't work and I have questions, I prefer to do it live, right? And we record it here. So I have that as a backup. I also, the book mentioned a Graviton or a cloud machine with. um, so I just a few minutes ago I spun up a VM with ARM. This one has, I don't know, eight CPU, 16 gigs. So if the Raspberry Pi doesn't work, I may use this one. And then for people in the chat were asking about where to get or buy a Raspberry Pi. Sergio also has some small devices. I don't know if we can run Kubernetes in those ones, but the latest is Raspberry Pi 5. So if you're going to buy a new one, buy the Raspberry Pi 5. It can come just by itself, or it can come with a bunch of things. This is Amazon, but I just wanted to show, like, different vendors online have different kits. So there's the board by itself, but also you can buy the board with the power adapter and an SD card separately. But minimum, what I have in mind is a USB keyboard. Power, I'm using just USB-C with 5 volts, um, and then the SD card. That's the minimum thing that you need if you want to follow along maybe next week if you don't have a Raspberry Pi today. But there's also like kits that have more things like a fan and a case. But minimum, I think it's like $60 US or $70 US just for the board. I don't know. I don't have a 5, so I don't know how much it costs, and it depends on the memory. So also pick if you're going to get one, buy the one with the most memory, right, Sergio? Like that would be the best thing to do. The
I agree.
I think it's 8 gigs. The
Yeah, I
Raspberry
think
Pi.
that is it. Yeah.
Um, and for more information, go to the Raspberry Pi website. We'll put links in the show in the agenda. And with that, I also let me bring up the book. I was going through it. Um, and then we'll do it. We'll do it live. We'll install, right. So Sergio, do you want to show? And then I
Just let
follow
me.
along, and
I
then
was
we.
like moving my camera. Sorry, just to show my devices. Let me see. Okay, here I am. Okay, here is my my mini cluster.
Okay.
Because I have a problem, I was troubleshooting this thing on the screen with a regular TV. So yeah, these ones are the Raspberry Pi 4B. The one that is in the bottom is the 4B 8 GB. The 4B 4 GB, 4 GB. This one I discovered that maybe is a bad device right now. It's failing. This one works correctly. Yeah, that's my setup right now.
Yeah, you keep saying TV. Just to date myself, remember when TVs didn't have HDMI kits?
Yes.
They,
Yeah,
I
you
tell
have
my
to buy
daughter, like, you
a
have
yeah.
HDMI.
That's important. You have to buy that kind of cable that has like
Um,
micro HDMI to the regular HDMI.
Yeah, I
important.
ordered one today. I'm using the one from my camera. This is not my
Mhm.
regular camera. So my Sony camera
Mhm.
happened to have it because I have a lot of cables in this office. It's just I can never find the one I'm looking for. I don't know if that happens to people. Like I have every cable possible that you can imagine. And my wife keeps complaining that I have too many cables. And I was looking for the power adapter. I know I have like 3 Raspberry Pi, Raspberry
Mhm.
adapters. I couldn't find one. Or the
That's
adapter
probably
for
a
the
great
HDMI.
Friday closing sentence. I have all the cables in this room, but never
Yeah.
can find one.
I
The
can
one
never
I
find
do.
it. So I order in a I'll post a link. I ordered the micro HDMI to female HDMI. That way it's
Mhm.
like a little adapter, and then you can like use it anywhere. So females rock.
There is another thing that we mentioned the last time. Let me see if I can try to move the camera. Like, let me see, just to show this.
It's
Wait.
just a tad dark though. Really
Okay.
hard to
Okay.
see.
Here is it. The
Okay.
SD cards. I think that are pretty important.
Okay.
The speed of the SD
Nice here.
cards are pretty like important to check. I think that the SanDisk, let me see, SanDisk Extreme Pro, I think that for me are the best. Thinking about the speed, how much speed you have to write information, and the cost. I think that are like pretty balanced about cost and speed. So I think that this kind of micro SD, the one that has red and black and the red and gold, this one is the better one, the Extreme Pro.
I don't know which one I got. Was a long time ago, but it
Mhm.
worked for me. Let me
Yes.
stop sharing, and then Sergio, you can go ahead and share.
Just let me
Um,
move the camera again. Okay.
one tip also. When I set up mine, I configure my. Oh wait, are you going to show the Raspberry Pi image thing? I can show it
Yeah, yeah,
quickly.
yeah. I have like, I recorded a video.
So let me share one thing that I did on mine.
Okay.
So when basically you download
Mhm.
this program, and there's another very popular program to image SD cards. Cannot remember the name now. We'll put the link in the thing. Basically, you select the Raspberry Pi that you need. So in mine, Raspberry Pi 4. Then I I image Raspberry Pi and I selected 64-bit, and then I noticed like I needed Ubuntu. So Ubuntu is kind of hidden. So go into uh, general purpose OS, go to Ubuntu, and then select. Do not select the desktop. Do not select the desktop.
Mhm.
Select
Yeah, the
the
server version.
server, the latest server version, 64-bit, and make sure it has like the Raspberry Pi supports your. So you're doing the 4 and the 5, you should be okay with this one. Um, and then for storage, basically select your storage. And I'm going to do that. But this is the thing that I did for me was I did the settings here, and I actually was surprised. I did the settings here for the host name. And I think I changed the host name later. I think I left it like this. Uh, Username and password. I was lazy. I didn't want to run another cable again with the cables. So I configured mine with a wireless. So the Raspberry Pi comes with a wireless NIC network card. So I put my SSID. I put my local US. So basically, this is configuring a file in the SD card. Um, um, I can show which file it is. And then the next thing that I did was in options on services, I put my public key. That was a public key. Yeah, so that's okay. This is the public key. Anyone can see my public key, right? If you know public keys, I put my public key, and then it configured SSH. So it came up, and the Wi-Fi just connected to my Wi-Fi. I got an IP address from my same Wi-Fi that I have in my laptop. And then to be sure that you always get the same IP address, I recommend go to your router or your fiber router. I'm using I think it was Google or Fiber, and then you can configure saying anytime this device boots up again, give it the same IP address, basically a reservation. That way, every time you boot up your Raspberry Pi in another place in your house, or you have sensors or whatever, it always takes the same IP address, and then you can do it for Ethernet. But those are my tips on like configuring your Raspberry Pi, SD card, booting, and then configure it here. That way, you don't have to mess up with a lot of things. But I was surprised that it actually worked. Last time, a few years ago, this was not here. Very very surprised with this. So I just wanted to show that, because that's what I did yesterday, and I got me to the point that I have my, where is it, VS Code. VS Code here, and I just SSH into it. I changed the host name to Ubuntu, and I mean where is my VS Code? VS Code.
On far right here.
Yeah, I'm SSHing, so no password prompt or anything, and I'm able to get into my Raspberry Pi, which has 8 gigs of memory and four little CPUs, right? And then that's the point that I'm going to follow Sergio on and installing Kubernetes. Which my first question is, what are we going to do with container D? If we have to do it or not do it, or K3s deals with it. So that was maybe my first question, but I'll stop and then give it to Sergio.
Thank you. Okay, let me share the screen. Okay. This is in the chapter 5. Let's say that the first chapter are more like installing things and things like that. So let's say all the things that Carlos mentioned is like cover the basic setup, covering the hardware you have to use, the configurations, the storage, networking, etc. Right? So, for example, if you want to use different, well, one option is to use a switch. Other option is to use a wireless router and use Wi-Fi. It depends on what do you want to do or to experiment with, maybe. Sometimes you have like a client, maybe your PC. Let's say that in this part, you can see a local networking. Let's say that the internet that your router at home is giving it to you. So there is let's say that in general, you can use a master node and worker nodes, or maybe you can use the master as a worker at the same time, right? A single node cluster. Well, in reality, in theory, a cluster is a group of machines, not just one machine, but let's say a single node cluster machine, right? So that's in general. You have to consider the networking part, what kind of private network, doing all the networking stuff, the subnetting, planning all that kind of stuff, right? Then, of course, the part that Carlos Santana mentioned, install the Raspberry Pi operating system in your SD card. You should buy the necessary stuff for that, the SD card, the Extreme Pro, or something like that. And you have to, at least you have to install the operating system, set up the user and password, the network, and a way to log in remotely, the SSH, right? If not, you are not going to access in the network, or at least you are going to access the Raspberry Pi using a monitor and a keyboard. I have the keyboard here because I wasn't able to access the Raspberry Pi.
That was the troubleshooting for.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say that, for example, because there are some way to install K3s that is not covering the book, that you have local installation without using internet, right? Just basic setup. So this Kubernetes cluster is not going to access the internet. That's one way. And the way to do
Oh,
it is you have at
air
least,
gap installation, I
yeah,
guess.
the air gap installation. And for example, you should have at least one Raspberry Pi, a monitor, and a keyboard. Is necessary. If you are going to use wireless, be sure the IP address that your Raspberry is going to use, or switch, and configure that stat is in a static way and whatever you want, right? So with that, you can start to install your K3s cluster, right? Your lightweight Kubernetes. So right now, let's say that I have a vanilla operating system. In this case, I was like, because I was trying a lot of things and I didn't discover the problem. At the end, I discovered that the device is not okay right now. But this one has installed the Raspbian, not the Ubuntu, sorry. But this one has the Raspbian, and let's do the configuration live as the crash loop meetup, right?
That's cool.
Okay, this one is a Raspberry Pi. Let me uh, let me see. Okay, I can show, for example, the kernel, Linux Raspberry Pi. Just that is a real Raspberry Pi that I am logging in right now. Okay, so the first step, of course, I have a summary here. This part is like updated. Let's say that some parts of the installation in the book is like, because art was written like 2 years ago. Right now, some parts changed, and you have to set up these flags on the CM command line text. So let's find this file inside the Raspberry Pi. Let's cross fingers.
Yeah, it's different. I think different locations if it's Ubuntu versus
Yeah,
Raspberry Pi.
yeah, of course. Ubuntu, I think that is inside the boot folder. So in general, you have to find this file in your operating system distribution, whatever
Let
distribution
me
you want
check
to
on my.
use, right? And you have to add these flags in
Oh, it's the
this.
same location actually.
Yeah.
On Ubuntu, I have it in the same location.
Let me
And this
check.
is
Mhm.
yeah, and those two flags. Some people when they install Kubernetes in their Raspberry Pi and it doesn't work, usually it's because they didn't do this step of enabling the kernel
Mhm.
to with C group. Actually,
Mhm.
this is not Raspberry Pi, like any any
Any
Linux
any Linux,
that
yes.
is there. That's something that
Mhm.
you have to do, and people like complain like it's
Mhm.
not obvious, right? That
Uh-huh.
you have to do that.
Yeah, but this step is pretty important. If not, it's not going to run Docker or whatever Kubernetes flavor you
Yeah.
want, right?
It's not for Kubernetes, it's more for running a container, right?
Container,
It's
yes.
to be able to do C
Mhm.
groups and C groups having namespaces, so the kernel needs to be
Mhm.
enabled to allow that to run like containers.
Okay, so let's reboot the device. Oh, wait. Shoot down. Should boot. What I wrote should boot.
Should reboot should be the command.
Okay, right now it's starting. Oh my god, let's cross fingers.
And then you have yours with Ethernet, right? Do I switch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a router, a wireless router.
Yeah, I didn't upgrade the firmware on mine, and mine is
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
4 years old or 3 years old.
Right now it's booting.
Yeah,
Okay.
it boots very very fast.
Yes. Let me see. Sometimes it's tricky. Like, let's wait for a little bit.
But what problems
Okay.
that you have seen rebooting?
Yes.
So one thing that I was going to
Mhm.
I have the cable, like I said, like let's talk about cables. I maybe call this the cables
Mhm.
episode or stories of all my cables in my house because my wife and my daughter makes fun of me because they see a cable coming in Amazon. They laugh at me. But anyway, I have a cable and adapter that it has a little button that instead of me unplugging the cable from the Raspberry Pi to reboot it or like shut it down. Basically has a little switch with a button that you click on it, and then it reboots. It's here somewhere. I cannot find it.
I actually agree on this one with your wife and your daughter. This is a funny cable, it's like having a storage on it so that you don't pull it.
Yes. Okay. So right now, well, this step sometimes necessary, not all the time necessary. Let's check.
That one, is it necessary?
Maybe not.
Yeah, so if
Forward?
you're using the default CNI canal, it is necessary. If you're using
Ah.
Calico or Celium, it's technically not necessary, but it's still recommended to turn it on
Okay.
for host networking to work.
Let's do that.
Sorry, thank you, Matthew. For which CNI you repeat? You said again for K3.
Calico,
which one is
right?
K3s using?
Yeah, so if you're using Calico Enterprise and then Celium, you don't technically need them. But then if you're using the host networking option, some pods will still have issues. So like in RK2, we just turn it on by default.
Thank you, Matthew. And in K3s, which one is going to be used? Which CNI?
I think that
If
default.
you don't specify it, it's canal.
Which one?
Canal.
You can, of course, I wrote K3s. I worked with Darren to write it, so I know quite a lot about it. You can specify whatever CNI, or you can even specify no CNI if you want,
no
and then
CNI.
bring your own to the cluster after the fact. So.
Okay, so but the name of this one is Canal. I haven't heard of that one. Cool.
Yeah,
so let me do that on
Canal's
mine.
kind of the old standard. Celium is slowly taking over. We're actually talking about with 131 switching over to Celium as the default option.
Okay. Well, thank you, Matthew, for joining. I didn't know
Yeah.
you were here. So if you want to introduce yourself, like
Thanks, Florian.
The experts
Welcome.
join.
Yeah.
Joining.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, let's wait for another reboot. I enable that part.
Oh, so what's the file that I need to enable?
I enable the IP forward. This one, these things that are like kind of options to the kernel too, right? For the IP tables.
Yeah, it's actually technically a security setting. It's because of how the CNIs work. There's basically a bunch of little Ethernet interfaces that get added to the box. And we're going to say, hey, allow traffic to come in one interface, but leave another interface.
Yep.
And by default, the kernel says, hey, you shouldn't be allowed to do it. So we're saying, hey, go ahead and allow that to happen.
Yeah.
I don't need the IPv6, right? I don't have IPv6 in my computer.
If you have it, Canal and Calico will detect it, and it just won't present it up to the pod.
I think
it'll
that
use it for the K3s process, but not like etcd and keep API and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's another thing. Let's say that unfortunately, when I was writing some examples, I discovered that my internet connection doesn't work because let's say that the equipment that the telco was using here was not IPv6, and my computer has support of that, and was the reason that didn't load the websites on my laptop. I was like, seriously? So I discovered that, as you mentioned, it's better to activate if you have IPv6 to enable that part.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to install the IP tables? I see install sudo IP.
Just in case. I think that the installer detects is going to detect if it has IP tables or not and install it. Not sure, but just in case.
Okay.
Right now, let's suppose that you configure your Raspberry Pis with a static IP address, right? And a little bit of networking.
Side note, and this is more generalized Kubernetes, it actually is super important that an IP address of a node never change.
Exactly.
K3s and RK2 and almost all the distributions, they will freak out if the IP address ever change. So I always tell customers statically assign them. And then in lab environments, DCHP reservations are usually good enough. But yeah, it'll cause a ton of issues, and basically your overlay breaks in the process.
Exactly. So as I mentioned, let's suppose that you configure a static IP address. Okay, so right now you can set a variable. This is the way to do the K3s installation from scratch, right? Without any other tool. Okay.
Sergio, can
Mhm.
you paste that GitHub
Yeah.
URL in the chat?
Yes. Let me. Oh, wait.
I'm
Okay.
following along.
Here. Where is it?
Let me clear it
It's this
across.
one. Sorry. Okay. Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Let's say
Done.
that I discover doing this experimentation. I discovered a lot of parts that you should consider, as you mentioned. Okay, so let's set this variable, and this command is the one that does the magic, right? Uh, Let me explain it a little bit. This is as you mentioned, you need a static IP address, so you need a static IP address for the master node. I am going to disable traffic, that is the default ingress controller for K3s, because all the people use Nginx as the default ingress controller to do something more like common for the people. And all these configurations are necessary to configure an external, or to support load balancers and that kind of networking. And in order to enable that, you have to disable some stuff, like disable this service load balancer, that is the internal load balancer that use K3s. I don't remember the name right now, but I am going to install another load balancer service for my K3s that is like more production ready, right? If not, you are going to be limited to use the ports, and if the port is used, you can expose your service, and is going to, the behavior of your lightweight Kubernetes is not going to be the same as a regular Kubernetes, right? And you also can use this configuration for bare metal installations for Kubernetes, right? So right now, let's install the Kubernetes. Let's cross fingers. I tested this a month ago. I hope that it's not going to give errors.
Just a note on that. What those are
Mhm.
is those are just Helm charts that are baked into K3s. So you can actually provide your own.
You have like a feature, yeah. That you
Yeah,
have a
they're
feature to use,
yeah.
but it's a little bit tricky. I think that it's not like too mature for me, so I prefer to use the regular Helm.
Yeah. So it's more or less it's for things like this. Like if you wanted to bring your own CNI or
Mhm.
bring your own load balancer, you
Also, to be
can
honest,
just
yes,
drop
I
those in a
Mhm.
directory and it'll just pick them up.
Yeah, I tried to include that feature in my book, but I was like, no, this is unstable. Doesn't deserve to be
Um,
included. Yeah.
yeah, we see it a lot with it, like the telcos
Mhm.
where they're doing like really remote deployments,
Mhm.
where these things might need an LTE modem that everything's got to come up before you even can call home.
Yay.
You can also do the same thing with images
So,
too,
Matthew, what was
where
your?
you
I
can
I
package
lost.
the images.
I
Mhm.
didn't quite follow. Like Matthew, you said that this command, this shell script that we're running, is like a quick way of like installing Helm charts.
No. So
No.
all
Mhm.
the shell script is really doing is just setting up the Linux service and
Mhm.
then setting up in this case, K3s server binaries.
Mhm.
The server binary, when that starts, because you can just that
Mhm.
directly if you really wanted
Yeah,
to.
I've done it
Mhm.
before.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say
that,
that instance
yeah.
like a kind of controller that automate abstraction for Helm or something like that. But this installed by
Yeah,
default
so
in the installer.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the K3s server,
Mhm.
it's really responsible for just standing up container D,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
and then it starts up kubelet.
Uh
Mhm.
huh.
Kubelet, we can actually pass kubelet direct manifest files
Yeah.
that say, hey, go ahead and start these pods. You can also pass them these special CRDs called Helm CRDs, which are a CRD that defines a Helm chart, and then we will spin up a
Ah,
pod that
I
runs the
see.
Helm command on your behalf
I
inside
see.
Mhm.
there.
I see. You have a CRD
Mhm.
representing a Helm chart, and then
Yeah, a kind
your
of abstraction.
your
Mhm.
K3s server is reconciling those CRDs. Interesting.
Mhm.
Okay, so you'll be
Yeah,
able to you should be
Yeah.
able to do kubectl get
Mhm.
these Helm CRs and see them,
Yeah.
right? -A.
Yeah, they're in Cube-system. It's not actually the K3s process.
Mhm.
There is a controller that runs inside the cluster called the Helm
Oh, there's a
controller
pod
that takes care of it.
running the controller.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's something like
it's very gray.
yeah. I think
No,
that
this is awesome. We're
yes.
learning also the internals of K3s at the same time
Yes.
we're studying it for the first time. It's like
Yeah.
double bonus, like double dipping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just in awe right now. Like, okay, the guy who brought K3s is in the room.
Join, yeah, nice. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
one thing. What are the Helm charts already baked in to this one?
There's a bunch. There's like the metric server. There's the CNI pods.
Yeah, go
Basically,
ahead.
anything that's going to run as a pod in the cluster
Yeah.
is going to be a Helm chart, with the exception being like etcd, Kube API, Kube Scheduler, Kube Controller Manager. Everything else that gets deployed to the cluster, it's just a Helm chart. So you can also provide it just
Okay.
raw YAML as well, and it will kubectl apply it on your behalf.
Ah.
Oh, in the folder, drop it in the folder as a
Yep.
okay.
You just
okay,
drop
okay.
it. The
Yeah, it's
manifest.
YAML file. You're applying the YAML files. The YAML files happen to be a Helm kind, right? Helm package kind.
Yeah.
Sergio, can you show us like in your terminal? Can you do a kubectl get CRDs? And then
Okay.
show
Okay.
and what for people to like see what Matthew is describing, right?
Okay.
So if you go enter,
Yeah.
click enter a couple of times, so people can see.
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's Helm charts.
Helm
and then
charts.
there's Helm
Ah,
chart
yeah, this
configs.
one.
The last two is just your name
Mhm.
is in there, and then the Helm chart config. I don't see it because your name is in there. And then yeah, do a kubectl get Helm charts -n kube system
Mhm.
Yep.
to see which Helm charts are there. Sergio,
Sorry.
run kubectl get Helm charts -a, I guess.
Yeah.
Dash capital
It'll be-
A. Dash like
Sorry.
the capital A for all.
Sorry.
Not
Because I
mouse.
don't have installed nothing.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
what I thought Matthew said that.
But there is like a kind of a specific
it
YAML
should be
to
there.
create a Helm chart for that. Yeah, I remember.
Is the cluster up?
Sorry?
Like you do kubectl get nodes?
Let me see.
I think it's up.
There should be.
Yeah,
It should
so-
be Helm
Yeah,
charts,
there's
as
the
Matthew
metric
was
server and
saying.
stuff like that.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry for that.
Try Helm chart configs.
Yeah. Okay.
How?
Helm charts. The CRDs are at the top. Helm chart.
All together. Yeah.
Helm chart config.
Helm chart configs.
No.
kubectl,
Sergio.
kubectl get
Get.
Helm chart configs all together. Yeah,
Okay.
Helm chart. Yeah,
Helm
like
chart
the
configs.
name.
Yeah.
I
Exactly.
think there's a typo. Helm chart
And then
configs.
Yeah.
can you
that's-
add the namespace Cube-system?
System. Cube system.
Cube system? Yes.
Correct. Yes.
Not found.
Huh. That's
Interesting.
I think there's a.
weird.
Was it supposed to be singular or plural? This one, Helm chart config or configs?
No. It works either way.
It shouldn't
yeah,
doesn't
it
matter.
worked though.
Yeah.
I think you're missing an S in the
Yeah,
chart.
that's
configs,
super
right?
weird.
It's not plural. Configs? No.
It's the same. If you look at the CRD, you put both.
Let me see.
in it.
If I use API resources, I think that lists all the CRTs, right?
Yeah.
Grep Helm, just to see the correct name.
Yeah, with the S. It's usually we use
there.
the plural is the canonical one.
Helm chart configs. I think that is correct.
Try just the Helm chart, but then the namespace.
with the namespace.
I thought the dash
Yeah.
A should do it.
No.
Yeah, there is issues that the dash 8 doesn't always work,
Mhm.
but
Oh,
that's
interesting.
super weird because if you do like a get
Mhm.
pods in Cube system, you
Mhm.
should see like metrics and a bunch of other stuff is all spun up.
Or maybe the other thing is because I am sending some parameters in a specific, avoid the installation of the helm of this thing. Maybe.
So if you go to var lib rancher K3s server manifest,
That's the location where the files get put.
yeah, you might need to be root because those are usually owned by the root user. K3s server management
Oh, sorry.
and server, and then manifest.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
are the YAML
So
files.
these are those manifests I was talking about.
Mhm. I
So
think that.
when you put those disable flags, it simply just doesn't create those
Mhm.
files. You can of course always add them in yourself
Mhm.
at that point.
Yeah, I
if you
think
so
that
choose.
maybe doesn't install that because I overwrite it, send him some specific configurations, maybe.
Mode
Mhm.
exec.
Exactly.
Interesting.
That's weird. I have to look at that.
No,
up.
I think that I think that I am remembering. I think that I discovered that I send a specific configuration, override that, and doesn't install the
The
helm
default,
system. Yeah,
the
the
default YAML
default.
files.
Yes.
So I bet you don't have metric server running, which is super useful.
Let me see.
What do you have running?
Top notes.
You have core
Yeah,
Linux?
I think that install some equivalent thing. Yeah, I think that is installed because I found the metrics here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a bug in the controller because those should be there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I have to look into that.
Yeah, that's the metric servers.
We're finding bugs even in the in the
Yeah.
meetup. Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
I need the same here for me. Okay.
Yeah. Let's continue with this. Well, the idea, let's say the idea of this configuration is that the user has like a regular lightweight Kubernetes as the same as as a cloud Kubernetes deployment, right? So the same behavior. For example, if you install a K3s with the link that shows the website, you should add sudo every time you want to install or run a Kubernetes command. With this one, you should use sudo before the kubectl command, and to have it's a little bit annoying. So this command avoid all that stuff, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I think we achieved I think the big milestone, right? We got Kubernetes running.
Mm-hmm.
So go back to the terminal. Maybe Matthew can answer this. We
Uh-huh.
never install containerd or Docker.
No.
So
Correct.
who ran containerd, Matthew, or install it?
Yeah. So Docker is effectively dead as far
Mhm.
as
Don't
we're
be so
concerned.
harmful.
Well, and I will give you the official rancher statement.
Mhm.
We will support shim until RK1 is retired, and that
Oh,
is
really?
announced.
Wow.
I think 5 years from now. So it's going to be around a
Wow.
while. But RK2 and K3s were built around containerd.
Containerd.
The K3s server process is the one that actually took care of installing containerd for you. It's the same thing with RK2. The RK2 and K3s are the exact same code.
Oh, really?
They're just rebranded with different configurations. One's more enterprise, one's designed for the edge.
Okay.
But yes, K3s takes care of that. It's also we burn the version of containerd in with the binary. So if you upgrade Kubernetes, we go ahead and we upgrade the containerd to match it. So they will always be in lockstep with each other.
Thank you. And this is what I wanted to highlight. So Terry, sorry for giving you back, is because there's many reasons why people use K3s in home labs and in Raspberry Pi and the first time. It's because K3s has I think one of the best user experience in terms of like running Kubernetes, like small devices, and this because it has batteries included, like Matthew said, right? Usually, if you use kubeadm, you have to make sure you install container D and configure container D and the right version of container D, depending what version of container you have. So they took care of that. The other thing is like when you boot up the system, who's in charge of starting the API server? Well, you have to configure systemd to install. So K3s, they burn everything into a single binary. Like the server is in charge of configuring your Linux system to an extent, right? Systemd, Raspberry, or Ubuntu will configure your Linux with the dependencies, and then itself would install the Kubernetes. And it looks like if you run the default, install a set of useful Helm charts. So
yes,
just wanted to highlight because we're 10 minutes before we end, but I think that was kind of like the milestone of like we talk about the Raspberry Pi hardware, showing it how to install the OS, the prerequisites, which is, I remember correct, was static IP, very important, port forward, and C groups for the kernel. I think that's it. Like at least then the rest is taken care by K3s. Is that a good summary of what we did today?
yes. I think that is a good summary.
Okay. Let's see. What was the next thing we're going to MetalLB?
Yeah, MetalLB. This one is going to give you the support to create load balancers on premise. But in this case, we are going to install this for K3s in a Raspberry Pi. But let's say that it's going to give you the service of the load balancer, that power to create load balancers, but locally. Right?
So what about if we run? We should be able to run a pod, right? Nginx pod, a deployment now.
Yes, with
without
a
it,
load balancer.
Without a load balancer, and then access
It's
that
going
Nginx.
yeah. Let's say that, for example, right now, because I removed
Traffic
the default, and the default way to create load balancer,
ingress.
right? In the K3s. So right now, because doesn't have like load balancers, is going to show pending in the external IP that shows the load balancer.
If
It's
you
going
create
to
a
be
service of
pending
type
forever.
load balancer,
Yeah,
if you
and it's
create
going to be showing. Okay, wait. Run. Let me see. Nginx. Nginx. Right?
So question, this is a trivia for people in the chat. If I use kubectl run, I think I did this in the Kubernetes trivia, is it going to create a pod or a deployment? Put in the chat, is it going to be a pod or a deployment? kubectl run. I say it's stateful set. Not just kidding. Pod. Matthew says a pod. Like people are
okay.
pod. So if you use a Kubernetes old version of Kubernetes from like, let's say 8 years ago, pod or deployment?
8 years ago, which version?
Deployment, yes.
Yeah.
But if you want, so usually I don't recommend using run myself. I usually tell people you run kubectl create deployment. That way you can get a deployment and you can recreate and get the useful thing. But this run is also the one that has all the flags that we're used to back in the days. So we have Nginx running. And then what are you looking for? Expose? Well, we have to create a...
Yes, I was like, expose, Paul, Nginx.
And expose is going to create what? An ingress or a service? Put in the chat. No question.
Okay.
And put in the chat if you know what is the kubectl command to create an ingress. You don't have to have YAML. You can create an ingress with all the options from kubectl, if you didn't know.
Wait, which was the first question? This one, expose?
Expose, ingress or load balancer? Ingress or service. So Sergio, I think Chad pointed out that we need to delete that service because you made it load balancer.
Yes, because that's what I was saying. Because right now the support of load balancer is going to show the external IP pending forever, right?
So yeah, Matthew has a question. Matthew saying that load balancer is for cloud. That's correct, but it's not only for cloud. Load balancer can be for your
Yeah.
home, and that's we're going to be
Yes.
using the load balance
Mhm.
MetalLB.
Yes, la load the balance, right? So with an
So
endpoint, right?
So what's happening here? We have a pod. So if you do kubectl get pods, is it running?
Mhm.
Wait,
Yeah.
what does it mean for edge devices to have load balancer exactly?
So
Maybe you. Mhm.
yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Sammy.
what I tell customers, the reason you would want a load balancer on something like a K3s, where it's a single node, is by default I can either put my pod on the host network, so it's sitting on a raw interface of the host. Well, that's no fun. What happens if I have multiple pods all sharing the same IP? Well,
Exactly.
I can use node
Yeah.
port, but then that's a random weird 30,000 port. My load balancer, in this case, we're running MetalLB in layer 2 mode. It's really just
Yeah.
adding a VIP
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
port forwarding it into the service. So then it lets you bridge that gap.
Mhm.
It's not really truly highly available because it's only assigned to one node at any given time.
Yeah. Right.
Um, but especially for like edge deployments, you kind of don't care at that point. I mean, these things shouldn't be rebooting all the time and stuff like that.
Right.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
true.
Yeah. Great. Great
Yeah,
explanation.
it's also the ergonomics heavy, like of like the same tooling, the same scripts, works in your laptop, works on the cloud, and then works in K3s. So like you continue using the same command, the same YAML, and you don't need to do a lot of adjustments, right? Like that's what we want with Kubernetes. Like you run it anywhere, it works the same anywhere. Like
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons that the community created API Gateway, because the ingress has so many annotations for Nginx and the specific vendor, and this one like you couldn't get a single YAML file that worked everywhere.
Yeah, that's true.
In addition to that,
Yeah.
a lot of the ingresses are really only built for
Yeah,
HTTP and HTTPS.
that's true.
So things like I have a developer that's running and he needs to get into that MySQL box, but he doesn't know Kubernetes. So if I could present that TCP service as a load balancer, it's just an IP address that he can then access at that point and go about his business.
Yeah. That's also a great point. Yeah. Exactly. Right. Thanks.
So we
Thanks
have
for that.
Raspberry variant doesn't come with core. Well, nothing comes with core, I guess.
Yeah, I think that has another problem. Sin is missing. Let me see.
What's happening? Is the pod running?
Yeah, let me see. Yes, you can if you want to live on H. I think the
What was the
regular
area you
Helm.
got?
Okay. Here is okay. Sorry. I think that some things on the okay. Helm. Let me see.
So you're
Okay,
installing
it's
Helm.
working. Yeah.
But before Helm, we were able to access the IP address of this pod to show people how to
Yeah.
access that Nginx?
No. I don't have installed that right now. I am going
You
to
have a pod
install
running.
the
Let's
MetalLB.
hit it. No.
Okay.
Before MetalLB, like this is a hacking session. We need to hack a little bit.
Okay.
I brought even a shirt that says hack wars.
Okay. Just let me.
You didn't send the memo. We would hack t-shirts.
So yeah,
Let me
let's see
see.
the IP address of that pod and then
And
hit
do you
it.
hack
Let's
it?
use kubectl get pods -o wide, right?
Yeah, it's this one.
And then you can hit that one, right? It's running in
Yeah.
10.42. So the routing. Oh, Matthew is leaving. So thank you, Matthew, for joining. If you want to join
Thank you,
next week,
Matthew.
you're welcome. Yeah, thank you so much for all the insights.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everybody.
just let me. Thank you. Just let me open
So this IP
visible.
address assigned to the pod is a different subnet, but I believe is reachable from the host. Let's test that, right?
Okay.
So do a
Just let
curl
me.
against it.
Yeah, let me create. Inside in the same
Where
host.
I want to see Nginx. You're not. I want to see show Nginx. Show
Okay.
Nginx.
I can do it inside a pod, right? Or I can do
No,
it
no, no, no. From
with a port
from your
forward?
command line. No, no, no. Just hit that IP address
Okay.
to see if it
With
works.
ping? Okay.
With curl.
With
Curl.
curl.
You don't
Okay.
have
Let me
curl?
see.
Go for Carol. Yeah.
See
Yes, I
URL.
have curl.
Just hit it quick curl. Like yeah.
Yeah.
Yay! That's all. That's all I wanted. Sergio, you don't have to have a load balancer. You don't have to have a MetalLB. You don't have to have Helm,
But
right?
I think that, as Matthew mentioned, I think that in order to get this, it's important to set the IP forward variable. Do you remember the IP
To get
forward?
what?
To get this, not sure. If I disable that, I'm not sure is going to match this thing. Maybe yes, maybe not, but I'm not sure.
No, the IPv forward is for the kernel for having the connect when
That's
you
right.
have the CNI type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not.
Yeah, he
It's
mentioned that.
always so. Don't worry about the IPv4. It's something that you have to
Mhm.
have. Like doesn't matter. So this that you always have. Like that's a given, right? Every Linux Kubernetes system will have that. It will have the kernel flags. So basically, you have access to the IP address.
Mhm.
Vinod, I think the link to the GitHub is in
Mhm.
the doc. Sebi, I think, put it in the doc.
Mhm.
So
Yes, I have.
this is what I wanted to show you, right? That
Mhm.
kubectl run nginx, you can access that IP address because it's running on an IP. You happen to be sitting in the same machine that the pod is running, and then the networking is set up that you are able to access it. Normally, when you use Kubernetes, you're sitting somewhere in your laptop, and the Kubernetes cluster is sitting in the cloud or somewhere else, and you cannot access that IP address, right, of the pod.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. What
Um,
else? Mhm.
do you want to try the MetalLB? Is that quick?
Let's do it really quickly. Let me see.
Sorry, I delayed you on that, but I wanted to show the point that for people
Yeah.
to not think that they have to have this extra stuff to just run a pod with an IP address, right? With the minimum thing
Okay.
in their computer, in their Raspberry Pi.
Let me see. Okay. One MetalLB system. Just let me see something. Just let me
Did you
confirm
did that
something.
apply? Yep.
Yes. Get an
Double check that
S.
everything's running
I am
with what.
MetalLB. Yes. Get pods. Metal. Sorry. There is one that is not running. Let me see why. I think that they'll show describe pods. LV system.
It says name server limits were exceeded. Needed IP address.
Interesting.
That's a rare one. I don't know.
It's running right now. Okay, let's do it.
It's right. It took a while. I think, yeah, it was coming up.
Yeah. Okay. What else? What else? My last command was
The
okay.
apply.
This apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Now
we have to
okay.
configure it with a ingress pool and
Yeah.
a L2
Just to mention,
advertisement.
this one is important. Okay. In this example, I am using the network, this private network 1.0, right? No 0.0. Yeah. So I am going to use the range between 240 to 250. In this range, I am going to create the load balancers. The other ones, the other IP addresses are for other stuff, right? Maybe local machines, other nodes, etc., right? So I am going to use this range of IP addresses to create the load balancer. And it's
But
going
that's
to
in the
be
same.
accessible in the network. Mhm.
but that's important. That's one first things that I learned about MetalLB was
Mhm.
just to get it working on your Raspberry Pi. Your Raspberry Pi also has a 192.168.1 dot something if you were like booting from DHCP or static IP address. So if you're using DHCP, just be careful that you pick a range that is outside the range of the DHCP
Exactly.
that your home network or ISP or Google Fiber or AT&T, all these providers, like you configure it. And usually it's at the end. Sometimes they leave the last IP addresses from the subnet unused. But if not, just configure your router to leave a few, because basically MetalLB, what it's going to do is going to assign these IP addresses to your Raspberry Pi NIC. So you will have the one that it has now plus these extra ones.
Yes, that's true. Okay, let's expose the thing. Let me see.
No, it should be already like get service, because we already did it. We did the expose, no? We already did the expose. We already did
I think that
expose.
I deleted. No. Oh, here is it. Yes, you are right.
See? So that's
Okay.
the magic of eventual consistency of Kubernetes, right? Like, which one do I do first? What I do first, the second, and
Okay.
third? Like, you don't install stuff in Kubernetes in order, and that's my pet peeve. You
Okay.
just like
Let's
give it.
let's do this because I have my IP address in this network is 111.
Yep.
So okay, and this one is 240, right? If I access this IP address in my web browser, no, yeah, it's going to work
Yes.
because you are in the same network. Sorry, it's going to work.
Such a happy moment. Yeah.
A screenshot of the thumbnail.
Yes. And in this way, you can do whatever you want using load balancers in K3s as a regular Kubernetes.
Yep.
All this is necessary to have almost the same behavior as a regular Kubernetes in any cloud, right? But locally.
Yep.
Oh my God, as my eye is like shaking.
What
Yeah,
a little box, how much joy a little box can bring, right, to a bunch of nerds on a Friday night.
Yeah, I think that the next step, I don't know if the next week, but maybe the next one in 2 weeks, we are going to turn on and turn off a LED using Kubernetes in a Raspberry Pi.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I have lights. I
Wait,
have
wait.
switches.
I didn't hear it. Can you repeat?
Control
Lights?
lights. Control lights with Kubernetes.
Yes.
Yeah,
I need to buy
something
something.
basic.
Okay, so
Yeah,
this is, if you're
something basic.
watching, this is something to come back. We are out of time. Let me close the stream or the video. Thank you for the people that are watching. Thank you for people that are here. Let me stop and then we'll close.
Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Okay.